Oh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Guilherme. I'm Guilherme Reis. I'm from Brazil. I have been in Europe for like 8 years now. I'm a software engineer, mostly now in the front end, and I've been in all over the places, like from VB to now, and being a more specialist on JavaScript. For the last, I think, 1 year to 2 years, I've been a team captain, and I'm involving now for PDM, that's a personal development manager.
Wow. And what inspired you to join the Leadership Landing Program?
Yeah, I think for me, I was seeking, let me formulate that in the best way, because I first took one class of yours that was the Agile course. One day, I
The
think,
Team Accelerator.
yeah, the Team Accelerator.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 days, but for
Yeah, I
me,
think it was over 2 days.
yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
but for me was really transformative. And even when you look to Agile, you look like what it is written in the book. And I had this holistic view of that. And that's the approach that I like to have on stuff. And so that course really opens my world to Sarah words. And just grabbing bites and stuff of knowledge from you from that was really nice, and I wanted more. So that's why I went to leadership, because I like, hey, I do like to be a leader. I do like to help people. Usually I get in situations that I do like to be in those positions, mostly because I see some lack of a team. So I put myself in this position, but I also want to understand myself, and I also want to understand the people that's with me in the team. So that's what I went to the course. I wanted to feel a bit and understand more with the perspective that in these 2 days you showed to me. And I knew that was a lot of stuff to learn, and it's still a lot of stuff to learn. But that day, that was the click for me. Like, hey, I want to be a leader that people like really likes to be around me, and that's what I felt from you. That I was like, hey, I want to work with you.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I had that feeling, and I like, it's not a situation. How can I learn the best from her? And was the course, and it was really really good.
Yeah, and actually, I remember you specifically in the program. I mean, it was a couple years back when I did the Team Accelerator. And I think what really resonated with you, because I remember in your checkout, was not just the way I presented agility, breaking the frameworks, if you remember. It was how I presented how you can communicate differently. It was how I gave the course because you struggled with not being recognized in your neurodivergency, and you struggled in being, let's say, being fully present or being part of the room, or also being able to have those courageous conversations and be able to influence in the way that you really wanted to do. And in those 2 days, you said, oh, I like, first of all, you didn't lose your energy, because I remember you saying something like normally a 2 day program, you would lose energy, you would lose focus, but you didn't over 2 days. You had your focus those 2 days. And you said, what did you do to keep my focus? Because I never have my focus kept.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that really resonated with you, because when you reached out to me for the leadership program, it was not just, I want to lead like her. It was, I think you can actually teach me this in a way that other programs can't teach. That's what really resonated with me.
Exactly. And the courageous conversations I still use by today. I have a just there, the one that you gave to me. Every time that like, hey, I use that a lot actually. And I had in these last years, I had a lot of situations that I had, hey, let me give one step back, let me write it down in this format, because then I really express myself. And sincerely, it is totally a change of the door. It's like the person could be like really mad, and it could have its own problem there, his own word. And when I change with the correlations conversation, the person just like, hey, okay, so let's, and it brings to everyone to the same level, and then we can talk and solve the problem. And that's for me was definitely the big thing. The communication and the way you communicate stuff is really really nice. And I have been receiving some compliments, few compliments about the communication style and how I could be so empathy with people and stuff like this. But I already had the empathy, but now I know how to communicate with them in a way they also would open the door for me and let me in. So it's pretty nice. I really,
Oh,
really
that's beautiful. I just got goosebumps opening the door and letting you in.
yeah,
That's what you were missing. I remember you wanted to make impact, but just weren't quite there, if I
yeah.
remember. And this will lead beautifully into the next question. Where were you in your personal or professional growth journey before starting the course?
I remember that I think it was my first or second year at IO, and I wasn't the team captain yet. I had an interest on that, and I believe it was between that was I wanted to learn more and become a team captain and be like a manager or even a tech lead, and that was the point. But more philosophically, I think I didn't know where I wanted to be, like where my career is going, right? I didn't have that view of where I should go next step. I was a senior front-end engineer, and that was it.
Yeah,
Just keep.
a bit stuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And what did leadership or impact, the words of leadership and impact, mean to you then? And what do these words mean to you now?
That's a hard question, but let me know if I'm answering the way you would like to see. But I see leadership now in a different way. Because when I see a leader or engineering manager or a tech lead, before I see them just a tech lead, just a manager, and that's it. But now I can put them more in styles, because we discussed a lot about styles of engineering manager, and I
Mhm.
could like, okay, so this engineering manager use this style of leading, and so I also, for me, it's easier to approach them, right? And also, when I have an engineering manager, for me, it's easier to communicate with them, because now I know what the style of leadership he's at, so I can that communication for me is easier. So I think I separate, like, for a solid block, like this is our leaders and managers and stuff, for smaller grains, like, oh, this is style, this is style, and this is style, and this is style.
Yeah, leaders are in fact humans, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And it's not just leadership styles, as you're mentioning, but personality types and needs, values that they might have, different talents that they bring to the table. And as you said, every leader ends into this coming with a different set of talents, dragons, desires, needs. And then, of course, they will adapt the different leadership styles based on what they bring to the table. And as you said, as soon as you recognize what a person's needs are, the conversation changes. It's not just about going and, like, a lot of people think courageous conversations are stepping up in a room and saying, this is my boundary and this is what I need and blah, blah. But that doesn't get us anywhere, right? It creates a
Yeah,
defensiveness. People feel, they feel irritated. They don't feel like you are there to contribute to a joint cause, and it doesn't bring you a step forward. But as soon as you recognize their humanity and you see, this is what this person that I'm speaking with needs, this is what our joint activity is moving forward. These are, let's say, their dragons, their fears, what's underlying, and maybe the reason that they're reacting to this behavior. You can go into it with more differentiation, more clarity on what the actual conversation is about, and more openness to the different ways to solve it together. And as you said, you make more progress when moving forward.
yeah. I think it is really related, because then you can see the other side. Because when you understand the needs, you can talk from the same point of perspective. So, and then you can progress together. Even if you don't agree with their perspective, you can see their perspective. So this is really powerful in
Yeah,
my.
that's like the, I don't know if you remember day two, or actually day three, we talk about convictions and how you can actually have different convictions in the same team and still make positive progress together, as long as all values are honored in that space. So learning how to be okay with different perspectives and still be able to make progress towards a joint goal, that is power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move to the next question. Which parts of this program stood out most to you? A session, a story, a reflection, a tool?
I can definitely edit the courageous conversation, but the courageous conversation is already impacted me in the first.
In the Team Accelerator. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then this one, if I would like to bring one most, it is to understand my dragons. I think understanding my dragons was the biggest thing because to talk to someone and understand someone when you're in the heat of the moment, you need to understand yourself first and your boundaries. And I already had situations recently, were situations that I had, hey, I need to stop here and we talk in 5 minutes so I can sync my thoughts. And then
Regulate.
yeah, and then we can talk about it and go for it. Otherwise, we'll be discussing and nothing going to we're not going. And in the end, we just got offended, right? Because you could say something that you don't want to. I say something and we don't want to, and we're just making.
You're both your dragons are both burning each other, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it was really powerful that part that we are talking with the dragons, understanding the dragons, and really drawing the dragons that we saw it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember there was one draw, I might have it there, the big book, that we were drawing something about our dragons, and I still feel it. And as we're discussing, I noticed that all this stuff I don't know by the book, like all the words by the book, but it still really structure my mind how to think and how to proceed in situations. And just talking to you, I just had like some flashbacks, like, hey, I actually apply this that we're discussing right now on this situation that didn't work.
Yeah.
But it's just because as it is a long course, it model how you think. So
Yeah.
I think I really
That's the intention of the course. Some people have said, why don't you just do this like in a week-long course, like intensely? And I just don't agree with that. I think part of the magic of the course is that we spread it over 12 sessions over weeks, because every week or 2 weeks, depending if you take the 6-month or the 3-month program, you have time to reflect and to utilize your learnings in your daily life, see how these new insights are shifting your life, and then you're bringing it into the next session. So actually, when people finish the program, what I've noticed is it's not one of these things that you rush through and you get a lot of theory, but it's integrated into your life and how you do things. So because now it's been a few years back, and I've spoken with a lot of people that have taken the program years ago, and they say it's still 100% part of the way that they live and the way that they act. And it's like, oh my gosh, actually, that's where it started.
yeah, exactly. And I sincerely was one of the persons that I think, hey, let's do it true. Now I see the value because actually, because I think sometimes we have a longer time, like 2 weeks, so you can actually think it through and use. And these sessions, like you learn it this week, you can say, hey, let's see if I can apply it. And of course, you're not going to apply directly in that week. It will be situations that will come up with the years, with time. But because you really took time to learn it, you really go with.
You really get deep in a like peeling back slowly over time, and it feels really real when you finally get there. And there can be real emotional moments, like this is too much, and then you have enough time to relax again and get to a healthy space so that you can take the next step forward again. And I'm really curious because you mentioned your dragons. Do you want to tell us which dragons you live with?
I do have a few dragons, right?
Yeah.
I just trying to name them in English form. I know, for example, that I become really irritated, and in the first boundary, right? If I'm being too empathic and trying to understand, and I know that people is not going in that direction, I get really irritated in some way. But I do understand that dragon now, and I do understand that I have to like manage him, and like as I said, give the step back. And this even happens at home, like for people that it is already inside of me that is easier to reach me, like my wife. She would face this dragon more.
Yeah.
So I do understand that I have to like sit and talk with this
Yeah.
dragon.
When you sit and talk with this dragon, what do you normally tell it?
Yeah, for me, it's not actually talking. It's just sitting and breathing. And if I'm not wrong, we did an exercise of breathing in one
Yes.
of the
It's
stuff.
really learning how to sit uncomfortably with the dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Because for me, it's one of the things is just sit and breathe. But it's really funny because no one thinks I'm an irritated person.
Yeah.
No one that I know would imagine. They usually say that I'm a really chill guy.
Yeah.
The only person that I know that says that I'm not that chill is my wife and my mom.
Because they actually get to
They
see your
face
dragons more often, right?
exactly. They can
Yeah.
see it, and at work or friends and stuff,
You probably hold the mask up more.
I can hold the mask more,
Yeah.
and I can easily with the dragon, I
Mhm.
think. And that's one of the dragons actually that I've been facing most.
And what power do you get from this dragon when you, let's say, integrate with the dragon in this way?
Yeah, that's the moment that I am right now, and that's the moment that I'm trying to do this because, as I said, when we integrate it, we can use the power, right?
Yes.
Because when I see a dragon that is like this force of being irritated and just do it, right? Because
Mhm.
they're just together, just let's just do it. This
Yeah. Impatience. Yeah.
yeah, the impatience. And that's the thing that I'm actually fighting right now to just understand and just like regulate how to use that force and just actually do it. Because as you said, I also neurodivergent and sometimes I just procrastinate a lot. Right. And I also like learning and to use that with me.
Yeah, it can be quite a strength that you have this just do it mentality. And as you said, the negative side of it can be impatience with others.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a lot of people, especially with ADHD. I just see this more common that you have this kind of flows where you have extreme productivity of sometimes 3 or 4 times as much as, let's say, neurotypical people. But then you have moments of complete, let's say, lazy or disconnect or energy drain, And what I usually do when I work with such individuals is to teach them that this is your overall picture, this is your productivity, and it includes spikes and dips. And
Yeah.
not to the dragon is the actually not the impatience. The dragon here is being hard on yourself when you're on a low, and instead recognizing that this is part of your overall productivity cycle and it's your way of healing, way of regaining your energy so that when you're up here and you have that can do, you can do. So this is the integration which needs to happen so that you can actually experience and unlock this behavior without feeling like shit when you get down here. And this is what you bring to the table. So this is how you talk about yourself. This is what you bring. And when you learn how to work and flow and you learn how to accept and love this about yourself, it's no longer defensive. Like you're no longer defensive about those moments when you have low energy because overall you bring a lot to the table. And you also protect your energy because a lot of people which work 3 or 4 times as productive as, let's say, normal
Yeah.
individuals get used to that. And then people will think, I expect this all the time of you. If you can do it, you can do it all the time. And no,
Yeah.
you can't, right? So then you actually go into the right conversations and be like, no, this is actually what I bring. It involves this, but it also involves this without being defensive, without having to defend, but just as this is a state of fact. This is what comes with me, and that's fine. I'm worthy as is.
Yeah, if you learn to use it, that is really powerful because I notice when I really use it, I can just finish everything that I need, and then I waste it again. Like then
Yeah.
I'm tired again.
Exactly. And instead of feeling guilty about it, just
Yeah,
know this is part of how I am.
yeah,
And that is the sitting with the dragon and integrating. It's a kind of self-acceptance, it's a kind of self-worth. And by being able to sit with that dragon, you get the power that you get from these peaks. And believe me, this power that comes from the peaks, I mean, if you've ever worked with somebody that has that 3 to 4 times of productivity, it's not just productivity that comes, it's like massive imagination, it's massive creativity. It's like a kind of problem solving that you don't get normally from people which deliver more at pace all the time the same. So it's a massive superpower once you learn how to embrace it.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Was there a specific moment that shifted how you see yourself or your ability to influence others?
That's a really really nice question because I don't have the specific moment of time, but I could see it. That of course, when I became a team captain, more people were talking to me. But when I also integrated into a new team, I see that there is, because of the way of act, completely changed the figure, right?
Yeah.
So I completely changed how people perceive me, how I also deliver stuff, right? How I can switch between roles, like being a completely front-end developer to like managing style of that. And I also received some compliments saying, "Hey, I actually see you as an engineer manager, like a tech lead."
Nice.
And that's really really nice because I'm receiving this information, and I'm like, okay, that's nice. That's really really good to hear that I'm doing that impact on people, even being as a front end developer and being able to contribute in that way. That
Yeah. And we actually learned that is leadership is not a management hat, right?
Yeah, I think it's really really that, and it is a thing that I do like it. I do like to be in the middle position. Like I'm not like just managing, but I also in the side of people battles. Like as a software engineer, it's really nice to be there and see what we're doing and see where we're going and developing together and feeling the pain as well.
Yeah.
Because I think for most, I think tech leads and the engineering managers, there is a moment in the career that they just managing,
Hmm.
right? And I think this is really hurtful. And being in a position that also is just in the middle, like I can be there, but I also can contribute and talk in the same level. It is really powerful for me. So in the last year, I have noticing that it's been some impactful and moments that come. I cannot say it was from this date, but
Yeah.
I see there
It was a
delivery.
gradual awakening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And how did the program challenge or stretch you emotionally, mentally, practically?
Yeah, I think, as you know, I just had the baby when we get.
Yes, I remember.
I did a course with the baby sometimes, right?
Yeah, we're like on you. I remember.
He was in the sling, and so mentally it was really impactful because I also was just dealing with other dragons that today they're more quieter. I understand them, it's easier to reach them, but there was a lot happening in that moment. And of course, having two kids, little kids, everything happens. And when you want to involve also in the career, is mentally and even physically really tiresome. I think all the new parents know how it is tough, and all the parents know it, right? We just get it. And then we think we want more kids.
I've had, for some reason, quite a few new parents or people having more kids that took my program. It must be that age of
Yeah.
transformation between engineer and management. It kind of falls at the same time that we become parents. And one of the things that I've heard people say is they find this new learning of leadership actually not just changing their lives, but changing the life of their children because they
Yeah.
parent differently. It's essential somehow at that time in life to start to change the way we act and think and regulate ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's the most important thing because it doesn't, for me, it impact how I communicate even with my kids. And that's the toughest stuff.
Yeah.
Because as I said, at work, you can put the mask on and just go in that. You're professionally going that.
Hmm.
At home, you have everything that your mask is everything is just showed to everyone. So
Yeah.
it's like not doing faces and not doing so it is really truthful and how you are in that moment. The kids, you learn it and you also teach them how to be like that and how to teach them to communicate in a nice way. And so I think, yeah, I think it challenged me a lot in the beginning so I could just understand myself. And in that moment, I was having my second kid and I was learning even more and stretching me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And so it was really a bridge in a way to talk with my dragons, I believe, and understand them in some way. And I do believe with the dragons is a thing that every few years a new one shows up, right?
Yeah.
I think they made.
They may mate or they've been
Yeah,
hiding
yeah,
underneath there. It's like,
exactly.
oh, I see you now.
Yeah, exactly. So you can walk in the valley and say, "Oh, there, exactly." It's quite a journey, I think, and quite a journey. And yeah, I do think, and I'm really happy to talk to you now because after a few years, I see that this stuff is inside of me. But revisiting it, it shows how I put the stuff in a way that it goes like that, and even push me a little bit more, so I could adjust the other stuff that I actually reflect into.
And that's the thing. You have the book, right?
Not yet,
No, you don't
actually.
have it. So, in the book, in every chapter, I have a maze that I've hand drawn. So you see,
Oh, nice.
yeah. And so every chapter has, it has like a starting and end point. So these are all hand drawn by me. And what's very interesting is the end point of one of the last mazes is the start point of the next maze of each chapter. So you're like progressing through this labyrinth in the
Yeah,
book. And what I did specifically is the last maze of the book, if you go to the last one, the starting point of the beginning of the book is the last point of the end of the book because it's meant to represent the cyclic behavior of growth. So if you would go through this book, and the book is based on my leadership program on a regular basis, so maybe not every year, but maybe every couple of years, and you revisit your behaviors that you have today, the convictions that you believe in now, and who's influencing you with these convictions, but also what do I need to thrive today? It's going to be different than what you needed to thrive a few years ago because you have built new skills. You are able to now support yourself in something so you don't maybe need it from the room anymore. So you'll have different values. And then when you start moving in closer, to your personality, and then you discover those dragons, it's not that you get a lot of new dragons being born every year,
yeah,
but you build a kind of strength, just like your values are shifting and you don't need as much from your environment as you did before because you are leveling up as an individual. You have the strength to see now dragons that have been there all along. And that's what brings out more power. That's why I believe when people get older, not all people become more wise, but if we are on the trajectory to become more wise, it happens with age. As we become stronger, we have the ability to sit with dragons that we just couldn't sit with before. And that's a cyclic behavior. So yeah, this is something I hope the program teaches people. I don't know if you remember on the very last day of the course, it was like, okay, now you have completed this journey, but the journey doesn't stop.
yeah.
It's not like we're at the destination. You have learned how to walk the journey. And this will be a continuous cycle that you do throughout your life, every time leveling up your impact to maybe in a smaller zone, your family, but eventually to your organization and to the greater society as you grow older and become more wise.
Yeah, and I have been saying, and I noticed that I've been visiting this little book here. That's the one that you gave to me, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I have it, and I've been this is the one that I took the course, but and I noticed that I have visiting it several and several times. So for example, here I have my values, and I have a talks I had it with Anka with the
Yeah,
other stuff
yes.
we ask it. So I do think the book is really, really a thing that it really helpful as well because in the end, I just saw one of the monsters here, and one of the in the end, we're still revisiting. I'm pretty sure other people that took the course as well revisit that from time to time. I definitely visit a lot the courageous conversation so I can really frame it in a nice way and see that you're not missing anything. But it does comes like for my values. I already got myself just like, hey, I'm taking that decision. And this decision, it is between my values, right? It is the values that I wrote it there. And even revisiting the values, like, hey, is this value even still making sense? It's still like who I am. And I do think the book would be a really nice guide to like read it and sometimes just
It's time to get this book.
yeah, yeah,
It's quite an
exactly.
investment.
It goes from part to part,
Yeah.
and then you can revisit. And when you're gonna become made an audiobook as well, so
Yes, still on my to-do list.
it will be pretty nice because I do walk with the
I
dog,
don't
and
know if anyone wants to listen to my voice for that, but
one.
I definitely need to try it.
I think so. I would be pretty happy to like when I'm walking with the dogs and like you're just processing all this stuff and you just put it and you just visit this stuff. This is how I do it
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, you're a more audio learner too. I'm
So
actually curious, since we're talking about an audiobook, would you like it more? Because this has been a question in my head, to have me, let's say, hire a professional person to read my book and have a, let's say, more eloquent voice, or would you like to hear it from me talking about it and me sharing it?
I think it's really powerful when it's you sharing it, because I have listened to books like from Amazon.
Yes?
And all the books that the person that did it read it, even if it was some chapters, it has more passion. It has exactly the thing that the person.
Yeah, when I'm reading in those, especially parts where it was my life I was living, of course I'm going to have more emotion in the way that I say the
Exactly.
words, like,
It packs more. I
yeah,
think even if say, hey, I'm not a professional in recording this, but I think it would be amazing because you do it pretty well. Your communication is like that, and I do think it would be pretty good. I think at least for me, perspectively, I would really enjoy it to listen
yeah,
to.
maybe it's something for me to do in these couple of months actually, where I am in between jobs. So it's something to
Yeah.
think about. I remember it was something I thought about before, and then it's just kind of fallen off of my active thinking. So something to consider.
For me, it's definitely one thing. I always revisit audios and when I'm walking and stuff, and that's the thing.
Nice, nice. So let's get back to our questions here. Which framework or exercise do you still use today? For example, the values map, the dragon metaphor you've already talked about, Enneagram, maybe the eco cycle planning, worthy goals, any framework which you still use today.
I have to think. One thing that I recently wanted to reintroduce, it is what is the name again?
Describe it, I can tell you.
Yes, it is the one that we do it with the team. So it is not one of those that you listed. It is the one that you do with the team, like the values of the team and how to communicate with the team and all the stuff. Because I noticed in some situations,
We did that during the team accelerator.
yeah, one of
Exactly.
the
Yeah. So it's the second day. Yeah.
and I think this one my moment on life is pretty important. But I think it is the one that I think I'm because the one that I'm really using always is the correlation conversation, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be like touching those all the time.
Yeah. The same one. Exactly.
But it is the one that for me, as I said for you many times, it really changed my life and really touched me in personal life.
It's okay to bring up the courageous conversation, because you can't have an effective courageous conversation without having a solid understanding of every single layer of your personality. So it's actually, let's say, the umbrella of everything in the first half of my book. The second half of my book is all about execution and how to deliver good leadership and engineering leadership, etc. But that first half, you need the whole first half in order to be able to effectively have a courageous conversation.
And I do remember you saying the first day of the course that the first, I think, 4 weeks or something
Yeah.
it was ones that we're gonna talk about yourself. And I do think that's the one that really like emotionally we went really deep.
Yeah.
And then you start executing those stuff, right?
Yeah,
And that
exactly. It's all about, at first, the first half of the program is really understanding, let's say, the tools we have. That's us. We're the
yeah,
tool, like how we work, how we function. The second
yeah,
half is being able to execute what you learn in real life to actually
move
move
teams
teams forward,
forward.
make real impact in the world. How can you actually get stuff done? And instead of just making promises, how can you shift yourself? Like, that's the second half of the program. It's more execution. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move forward. How has your approach to creating impact with colleagues, friends, your family, your community changed since completing the program?
I think for me, it was the communication and it was the empathy and putting yourself in the other shoes. And I think we talked about that a few times in the course as well. But I had a really, sometimes really difficult situations and really different culturally situations.
Especially being from Brazil, living in the Netherlands is quite a shock.
Exactly. So culturally difference that I could sit and could understand the other side and could just talk to the other side because I was that I couldn't impact that person because I learned how to communicate. I definitely believe it is the communication. I think the communication was what I was looking for, and the communication was the main thing. And even that's my problem now because all the workshops that I have, there's a new level that I want to deal with, right?
Yeah.
I want to see that in all the workshops as well, because the way you communicate and the way you teach us to communicate.
It's quite unique, my teaching style.
Exactly.
Afterwards, you'll probably feel like, hey, this is flat.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite unique, and that's I had a really good workshops in between, but it's still like I remember to talk with friends that take the same course, and I was like, hey, it's really good what he's presenting, but I do believe that if he did this and that, he would
It would hit deeper.
he would hit deeper, right? Because then I went in there,
Yeah,
right?
I think I combine so many different mythologies and learning styles and psychology and real engineering experience and leadership experience. And I put it all together into the program. So you're learning all the time, not just, let's say, the lesson of the week, but you're also learning in how I run the course because
Yeah.
each thing that you do is also learning. You know, you're also experiencing how you could do it with your team if you're having this particular conversation. So there are so many layers of learning that I put together in a multidimensional way. So it's not just watching a presentation, and I think that's probably what you miss in a lot of training programs you have after that. This probably feels kind of flat because you're missing that multidimensional learning that happens.
And I see that, and this is stuff that I try to have with me, is every person learns in a different way. And that's what
100%.
I was saying about communication and empathy, right? I'm a neurodivergent, so I will be way more connected with you if you all of a sudden put a video or a fun fact or something like that.
Yes.
I will be, hey, so when
Yeah.
my interest is getting faded away, you just
Yeah.
hook
And I
up.
try to communicate this also when I'm doing it. So, because sometimes things happen passively and people don't understand what's happening. So,
Yeah.
I will explain in the program that it's on purpose that we have a part which is, let's say, more reading, a part which is more communicating, talking, a part which is more doing. Then I'll put in a video, because it's not meant that every single individual can grasp the 100% of every type, but I am providing something which every person can grasp in the room, regardless of their learning type, so that everyone can progress through feeling they have gained something. And I really think about that when I create a training program.
Nice.
But when it comes to being able to walk in other people's shoes, I just want to correct a caveat on that. I talk about it extensively in my book, and I also mention it in the program, but it can be misinterpreted sometimes. What I try to teach is that other people have different shoes,
Yeah.
but I really don't believe anyone can walk in another person's shoes. And that's the understanding. A lot of people think that you have this ability to understand what another person's experience is. And by having that belief in itself, I think it's dangerous because then you start to assume you know what another person's experience is. And that's where most leaders fail.
Yeah, you cannot, because there is a whole background and a lot of dragons that even if you see the person's view, you're not feeling
Yes.
dragons. You're not
So
feeling all the trauma or
So
really.
if you see similarities, you go, this person also has been adopted, or oh, that person also has ADHD, or oh, they have the same abandonment dragon as I have. To remain curious always, because just because you have some similarities, you are different. And the way you communicate, if you want to communicate effectively, is being hyper aware of that the difference exists. And it helps you remain open and curious, asking the right questions and really including the people in your space.
Yeah. I have a question for you
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, good.
And it is a thing that I'm actually fighting at the moment. I think my light is going in.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I'm fighting at the moment because when you start to be more empathic and trying to understand the other side, trying to communicate with the other side with the same view so you can progress, right? There is a phrase from an old boss that tell me, and I always remember like the happy on life is related to progress. We're happy when we see progress, right? When we see an old lady when she has the grandchildren, she's really happy seeing the grandchildren progressing, right? But returning to my question is, how do you understand the the level of empathy that you have? Because being empathic, you have a lot of energy, right? Could be that someone get a lot of energy from you, and then you have to understand what is the energy that you can give. And this is the stuff that I'm at the moment just like, hey, this is my boundary of energy, because it is hard, because at the end of the day, as we were talking before, we just exhausted because you're trying to understand, you're trying to communicate, you're trying and try and try, but at the end you're also putting yourself less,
Yeah.
right? Because you're trying to progress to get this happiness, right?
So the 13 types of empathy. And one page before, because I happen to know your ADHD, I also specifically talk about different neurologies and why it's important to understand how empathy works based on your different neurologies. I have a section here also about ADHD, by the way.
Yeah.
And PTSD, trauma, also about yourself as an individual, your personality, etc. What I have found, a lot of people talk about empathy as if it's linear, as if there's a kind of empathy and you have a lot of it or you have less of it. And you're either an empathetic person or you're not an empathetic person. And a lot of people attribute being an empathetic person a positive thing and non-empathetic as a negative thing. And I see it more as a rainbow, as a, again, multidimensional being. It's not linear, as in there's one type of empathy. I declare in here 13 different types of empathy. And what's important is to understand yourself. Who are you? And if you are a person which, let's say, absorbs and feels a lot from others, that's a type of empathy. And sometimes it can lean towards toxicity. So it's not black and white in having a lot of empathy is healthy and having no empathy is not healthy. What's important is to become aware of which kind of empathy that I am presenting here going to ensure my energy is reserved. And I'm also helping genuinely this other person in the way that support looks like for them without sitting in their chair. Some people, because of our neurologies, we have, let's say, hypers. So we are hypersensitive, we are hyper aware. If we see a cut, someone getting cut, we feel the cut. That's a type of empathy. Some people don't have that. Other people, because of our childhoods, we have trauma, we are hyper vigilant when it comes to we see something happening and we can predict what will happen, or we think we know what's going to happen. So we're walking on eggshells in the world around us, and we start to really understand others, and we don't see ourselves. We're more outer than we are inner. And that's a kind of empathy, being able to see that that person is having pain before they say they have pain. However, Very often you're wrong. A lot of the time we think that because we recognize the patterns or what people are doing and we see pain and they're not saying it, so we can name it, we think we're right because of our past experiences, but often if we don't remain curious and we don't ask questions and we just start to assume, we can actually take over another person's existence in a very negative way. So I do believe great leadership requires empathy. However, the different types of empathy, for example, you have the compassionate empathy, cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, attunement empathy, sympathetic empathy, vicarious empathy, somatic empathy, phenomenological empathy, background empathy. This is a good one. Background empathy is a type of empathy that involves seeing how someone's past experiences, culture, or personal history shape their responses. Anyone can learn that. You might not have that kind of empathy that I explained, that you see a cut and you feel it, or you're hypervigilant and so you know what someone's pain is. But you remain curious and open, and you understand that people have different backgrounds. You studied maybe about different cultures, a culture map or something, and you're aware that it exists, and so you allow for those other cultures to exist. You can actually grow that kind of empathy. You can also grow a kind of empathy where you like rapport empathy, where you really build a rapport for people. You ask questions. You understand that there's differences in them than in yourself, and you maybe get really good at coaching and making sure that you ask about how they feel, or what's going on, or what values they need. But it doesn't mean that you feel it. It doesn't mean that. And imagine even a person which, let's say, leans on psychopathic behavior. They don't have empathy in the way that they can feel another person. They can learn empathy and they can support society and even maybe be better at it than some people which, let's say, feel it naturally, but step on other people's shoes in a way that takes away the curiosity and allowing that person to exist. So I delve into this chapter, into quite a few pages in my book. It's a really important topic. And I think too many people think of it in a linear way. So it's okay that you're confused by it. A lot of people are confused. They think they assume that other people are feeling empathy in this way. And they think, I'm not feeling it like that, so I don't have it. And that's just not true. It's multidimensional in the same way that our neurologies are multidimensional. You don't have someone that's just autistic and then they're just like this, right? It's on a spectrum, and empathy is also on a spectrum.
And one thing that you said was got me. It is that we ask a simple question, right? And how do you feel, right? And this is a simple question that you can easily talk to the other person.
Yeah.
Before assuming stuff, because I remember when we said, because of the ADHD, I sometimes predict a person's word, right? If it's going to someone directions, I know the pattern that a person will talk.
Your pattern matching. Yeah.
I just predict. So they were talking about that. So this is a thing that ADHD helps sometimes and then really bad in other situations. But I think that question, like how do you feel, how you see that, it is really powerful for all scenario for empathy.
And not to destroy what you're talking about, because my brain is multidimensional again. I've had people attend my program before, and one of my checkout questions often is, what insight do you have? What feeling do you have right now? And I've adapted that question over the years. I don't just say, how do you feel? But how do you see it? How does it feel maybe on your skin? Or maybe it smells a certain way, or maybe it looks a certain way. Maybe it's in words. What I learned is not even everyone can identify feeling. Some people don't understand even that question. And so by asking the question and saying this is the only way to answer it, that you feel sad, mad, angry, perplexed, or whatever, you are already discriminating them. So I have learned over time how to ask questions, yet still leaving space for people to exist in those answers in the way that they exist, and allow them. And that's why I think I empower so many different types of people, because I allow for their humanity to exist in the room when never before did someone say it's okay that you don't have a feeling like sad or mad. Maybe you don't visualize in the way other people visualize. So what would be a way that you are experiencing this? And I have learned the different ways that people experience the room.
I see that. Yeah. Now you're coaching me again. And
Got her.
but it's really good because I in some situations recently that it's exactly what is needed and exactly what we're talking about. And it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. So let's move to the next question. Have you seen any tangible results? So, an improved collaboration, recognition, confidence, maybe a promotion. I actually know that you had one, so you can
Yeah.
share about that. Maybe better balance in your work and life.
For sure, I can definitely put it at least some, but I definitely like a promotion. I think it's a recognition that how it's going and how we are dealing with stuff and how I'm talking with people and stuff like that. So this is really the connection that I could make even with a multicultural team. It really helps, and that communication helped it, of course, a lot during my day today. And also to bring these situations that I was just we were just talking, like that I culturally and emotionally could not understand the other side, but I could communicate in some way that we both understand, and we're both on the same side, even that we're going like in a we had a really tough times. We still like friends in the work and all stuff, even like situations are like, hey, this situation is not going well, but we didn't because the way we I communicate and the way that we go in the same process, it really helped it. And I see that the communication style is really the biggest chunk of it, right? The communication style, the empathy, and then trying to understand the other person, and this is really helpful, and this is day by day I see it. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And so, a question I'd really like to ask was the program worth the financial investment?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Always important to ask this question, right?
Yeah. I think everyone that takes this course would, yeah, it's really impactful. It is a thing that I don't think it is a course only for people that want to progress in their career. Because some people would say, "Hey, I don't want to be an engineering manager. I don't want to go this path.
Yeah.
I want to be a lead on this path." But I'm pretty sure you lead somewhere, even at a home or even,
If you're a parent, for example.
yeah, a community, and not only about work. I think for me, it gives you a base even to be a better human for the community, sincerely. Because as you understand and communicate, and first you understand yourself first, right? And this is the start, even for people that want to go to therapy, right, psychologists and stuff. It helps you to understand, right? And I think that's the big thing, that when you go for understand yourself, and then you can do other stuff, even if you don't want to be a leader. I think it's really important, and
Wow.
it's really nice.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of answers the next question. What would you tell someone who's considering joining the leadership landing?
Yeah, as always, I think just do it because it will impact. But I do believe that the person at the first weeks needs to be prepared for the emotional impact, because clearly I wasn't.
It's heavy.
Yeah, I wasn't, and not a crier, but I cried sometimes. Like, oh right, I see that, and it's really emotionally impactful. I do believe, and that what is makes the change, right? When impact that deep, you can change, right? I think as a humans, we just change it in mostly we change when we really had this drive to change, we really wanted, or if something impactful happens to you, right? Bad or good,
Yeah.
but something impactful. And I think this course and of course the first weeks is really impactful, and that makes a change, and that's why it makes you remember, even if you're not like with the book all the time checking. It's just, oh yeah, that's the way. So it get really deep, intrinsic to you. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And if this program had a ripple effect on the world, what do you think it would spark?
I do think I noticed that I'm more and more about community and I'm developing more and more my community and people around me and stuff like that. And I do believe that if this is spread to the world like that, I do believe that we have a better world, because people that understand each other, people that communicate with each other, it's way better, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm at a traffic jam, someone cut me off or something, all of that. If you know how to communicate, and if you know how to express yourself in a way that it's impactful as well for the other person, it's changed. And that's what we have been talking, right? Someone could be really mad at you. If you know how to communicate with that person, you change. And all of a sudden, you see that you're drinking a beer or a coffee, like you completely can change. I do think if it is a butterfly effect with it.
It's in a way you're changing by becoming more yourself.
Yeah.
So, looking back, what part of yourself did this program help you rediscover or strengthen?
I do believe that it put it to myself to something that I knew it, but I didn't write it down. Let's say like that. I do notice now that I'm really a people person. I really feel it to coaching, to manage, to help, and manage not the way like, hey, I want to say people what to do. I'm more in the coach side. That's what I notice more about.
Igniting people.
Yeah, when we're talking about managing style, I noticed that I do like to be the middleman that is coaching, like, hey, let's communicate that in a nice way. And this is what showed to me that I'm really people person. I sincerely noticed that I'm more involved in the person level. And we're doing a project. We want to reach a goal, and I'm really like, hey, let's do the go, thinking about the go, but let's everyone be really proud of it in the end,
Yeah.
right? Just
I'm really curious because this is always a question that comes up in leadership rooms. Often when people see me, they say, "Oh, you have those soft skills, people skills, etc." But what does that have to do with engineering? I believe what I do in rooms magnifies engineering. It brings more impact. It scales impact in a technical way. Do you believe that too?
yes, and it's really funny because you're saying that people say to you that you have the soft skills. It's the same thing that I heard from people. People
Yeah.
say, "Oh, yeah, but you know how to communicate, right?"
How does
Well,
that have to do with engineering?
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But I do think, and now that we're talking, I really enjoy to like work in, for example, in a BFF, that's backend for front end, mostly because I could like sit the side of the backend developer and talk to them, and sit in the front end developer and talk to them and say, hey, we're doing this,
Yeah.
right?
You see the value stream, right?
Exactly. I really value to be in the both sides, being in this full stack side, that I could just communicate with both sides and just go it as a team and involve us as a team. And that's a thing that I really really enjoy it. And of course, I came from Brazil. We are really chatty,
Yeah.
right? But it also impacts me culturally. But I do think it evolved to me to being really a people person.
Yeah. And last question. If your inner dragons could speak, what would they say about you, who you've become, and the difference you're making today?
I should have read the questions. That's a hard one. As I mentioned,
That's why
I
it's the
know.
last question. It's like we're getting deep now.
Yeah, yeah, as I mentioned, I noticed that some dragons are quieter. Some dragons I could easily dialogue with. Other dragons, like the irritated dragon, been showing up more recently. And I think that the dragons would say that it's hard to put in words. But I would say that some dragons, not all of them, so I would say some, I could dialogue with them and they could dialogue with me in some way that we could use their power and go through it. I noticed in the last years that I grow it that, and I grow it as well, the self-reflection. And I think that's the important part of the course as well, to understand yourself, understand where you are. And that's also, I think, that I fight for as well, to understand and go for it and translate it right? Sometimes they're just talking dragon language, and I just speak Portuguese. I say, "Hey, can you speak Portuguese?" So I just seek it in with the question.
Can I take a stab at it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they would say that you now have made an effort to understand Dragonese, and they would feel quite seen and honored that you allowed them in your room, and that because of that, you have been able to reflect, get deeper, grow, and level up and make impact, not just in the lives of those which are in your most intimate spaces, but to the broader community.
That's perfect.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. I think so. I definitely,
I think that's what they would say. They would say thank you.
I definitely think that I can understand better dragons now. I
Yeah,
definitely,
I think so. And it's because you're not as afraid of your dragons as you used to be.
yeah. Even knowing they are there, right? I
Mhm.
think that's
That's
what I
the
said.
first part, right? It's like, oh, there's
Yeah,
dragons here.
the bridge to just go and reach them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in this last part, I'm going to ask you some questions on a scale 1 to 10. So, 1 being low and 10 being high.
Okay.
The first question: I understand my core values and how they shape the way I lead and influence others.
I think I would say 9 to 8.
Nice. I feel more confident and authentic when creating impact or guiding others.
Yeah, definitely a 9.
Nice. I have practical tools to navigate motivation, communication, and growth conversations.
Yes, a 9.
Nice. The program continues to have a positive effect on my work and relationships.
Yeah, 10.
Nice. And I would recommend this program to others who want to increase their positive impact.
Yeah, a 10, of course. Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any questions I didn't ask or any last words you'd like to share?
I don't have any other questions, but I do want to share that I think for from the team accelerator or for the workshop that yeah, everything that until now, the 2 courses that I had it with you really impacted me in a really good way. So I do think that anyone that there and really in doubt of, I think they should just take it and go because it really transformed me. And it needs to be like a bit prepared. There is no way to really prepare, but at least emotionally prepare that you are open to take the next step on your life, not only career and on your life. And I do think for me it came in an age that I was around becoming 30s, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong. I was in the house of the 30s. So I do think it's pretty powerful because it's as you said, it level up and mature as well, and it's pretty nice. It change stuff, change yourself.
Wow. Thank you so much. And it was so lovely to have you in the program. And I hope in a future program,